Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. Well, people are, I think Cernovich is talking about how there's a deadline on the Trump movement and so forth. There's a lot of stuff about Comey, the nut job, and all that sort of thing. But I want to talk about something that's a bit more general. It applies to the situation now, but it applies to a lot of different situations. And I think that as far as I can tell, the biggest single challenge that the God Emperor is facing is that he doesn't have much of a strategic brain trust. And what I mean by that is that, when people talk about strategy, they often fail to understand the distinction between tactics and strategy and grand strategy. Okay? It's maybe easiest if you look at it from a context of wargaming. Any wargamer will immediately understand the difference because the different levels of conflict involve different units and different, basically different levels. And so, for example, the tactical level is the lowest level. The tactical level is stuff that takes place at the, in military terms, that's what's basically taking place at the squad level, the platoon level, and to a certain extent the battalion level. In time, in terms of time, tactics is what you're using today. Tactics are what you're using now. Tactics are how you are reacting to what is in front of you. Okay, so when you're attempting to win the battlefield today, when you are attempting to accomplish something today, when you're dealing with a specific matter, whether it's the Russian investigation, whether it's the appointment of an attorney general, those are all tactics. Okay? Strategy is when you are figuring out what your general approach to achieve your overall objectives are. Right? That's another simple way to put it. Tactics is how you win the battle. Strategy is how you win the campaign. And then beyond that, you have grand strategy. Grand strategy is how you win the war. And so, on the grand strategic level is when you're talking about countries. And so one of the problems that I've seen with the Trump administration, and this is actually very, very typical of politicians in general, is they have a very strong tendency to get caught up at the tactical level. And I've talked to some people, it's a little bit ironic because Steve Bannon's title is Chief White House Strategist, but in talking to people that know him and work with him, he's actually a very good tactician. And this is quite common. Yeah, and that is correct. The operational level is usually considered to be between the tactical level and the strategic level. But anyhow, But here's the problem. No matter how good you are as a tactician, tacticians usually lose to strategists. For example, Napoleon was an excellent tactician. People who are tactical are often reactive. They're often counterpunchers. They're often able to wing it. They go into a situation and they can wait to see what happens. So for example, I play a very complicated war game system called Advanced Squad Leader. And I play against, my main opponent these days is my son, who's quite smart. He's been playing these games since he was about 5 years old. He got the nickname Ender because he actually managed to win a couple ASL games at a very young age. This is not very common, just so you understand. Anyhow, so what we were talking about at one time, and Ender was saying that it was frustrating to play me because he said you just basically throw your units out there, move them around, and then wait for me to make a mistake, and then go after that weakness and exploit it. That's a tactical approach. So my wargaming instincts tend to be more tactical. The strategist is someone who comes up with a general approach and sticks to that approach, doesn't worry about what's happening at the momentary level, and the good strategist is usually reliably going to beat the good tactician. That's how the Russians beat both Napoleon and Hitler's German generals. In both cases, the French and the German generals tended to outfight the Russian generals. If you looked at the casualty figures and that sort of thing, there's no question that the Germans in World War II very much outfought, man for man, outfought the Russian troops, the Soviet troops, on the East Front. Why did they lose? Why did they lose so badly? Because the Soviet strategy was better. The Soviets were better able to use their advantages of land, of resources, and so forth, and they were able to weather the storm and then roll up the Germans, over the next 3 years. And so, what I'm seeing with the Trump administration is I'm seeing a tactical focus. I'm seeing way too much concern for the day-to-day, the short term. Now, it's not completely bad. One indication that there is some strategic awareness somewhere in the Trump administration is the fact that no matter what happens, no matter what's going on, no matter what Trump is tweeting about and that sort of thing, the program continues. He managed to get Gorsuch nominated and approved. The NAFTA stuff, the renegotiation of NAFTA is proceeding. I understand that a number of the things that are necessary to get the wall going are in place. So there clearly is a strategic element in place that is continuing regardless of what's going on the day-to-day tactical level. However, one of the most important elements of conflict and warfare and that sort of thing is communication. And beyond communication, morale. In fact, in fourth generation warfare, morale is the single most important element. You can have less equipment, you can have fewer people, you can have all kinds of disadvantages, but as long as you have high morale, you still have a chance of winning. And no matter what advantages you have, if your morale is low, it is very, very difficult to win. And so the problem that I'm seeing with the Trump administration right now is that there is still very good morale in general on the part of Trump's supporters. Mike Cernovich makes a good point when he talks about the fact that the Trump administration shouldn't even bother talking to the New York Times. They shouldn't even bother worrying about the mainstream media because that's not where Trump supporters get their news for the most part. And so, but when you have things like Ann Coulter refusing to tell Lou Dobbs that she still backs Trump or so forth, that is indicative of a problem with morale. And so, when you are doing things like denying this, or denying this accusation, or trying to fight back against that accusation and so forth, you are typically not building up the morale of your side. And so, people have often asked me, how is it possible that, I don't have anywhere near, Mike Cernovich's following, or Milo's following, or Stefan Molyneux's following, and yet the VFM and the Dread Ilk and I are often able to accomplish projects that much larger groups can't. And so I'm often asked by folks, how is it possible? How are you guys able to do that? And my answer is always very simple. Our group, the VFM in particular, the Dread Ilk in general, have very high morale. That's not an accident. It's not an accident because one of the things that we focus on is building up our morale. I think frequently, what do we need that will give everybody a jolt? What can we do? What sort of little project can we come up with? What sort of post is going to energize people today? I'll give you an example. Infogalactic is a huge project. 7 million pages and so forth. And it's daunting. Just even when you start editing and that sort of stuff, it's just, there's so much to do. And it's not very exciting. It's important. Everybody understands it's important. It's strategic. But it's not very, you don't get that instant gratification that you get from, doing a post on Gab or something like that. And so we thought, okay, well, what's something that we can do that will be a little bit more, that will give people, more of a quicker response. And so that's when I came up with the idea for Infogalactic News, which is basically like a mini Drudge Report. A little bit hardcore, a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more focused. And it's something that if you've read it, that the editors are kind of having fun with it. When you see these, headlines where it talks about the dreamer, and then it says he had to go back. You know, there's a lot of little punchlines. There's a lot of little humor. People are having fun with it. It's a positive morale thing. In fact, the morale, it's news.infogalactic.com. There's also tech news at infogalactic.com. That's the newer one. And that was a complete surprise for me. I didn't even know about Infogalactic Tech. You know, that's the level of morale that the Dread Ilk have. That they'll just go, you know, they'll just take stuff and run with it. And that's what you want to have. You want to have your people constantly building up their morale, constantly becoming more energized. By the same token, you want to tear down the morale of the other side. And that, of course, is what the mainstream media is attempting to do to Trump and his supporters. And unfortunately, Trump and his inner circle don't really understand the morale situation. They don't really understand that maintaining his enthusiasm and maintaining the enthusiasm of his supporters is vastly more important than anything that he might have to say about Comey or about the Russians or anything like that. You know, just seeing Trump come out and smile and saying, hey, everything's going to be fine. They can talk about whatever they want. I don't care. I'm building a wall. I mean, imagine how the American supporters, how Trump's American supporters would react to that. You know, when he comes out and says, I'm being attacked worse than anybody ever. And, you know, I mean, that is a negative reaction. It's not strategic. No, but see, this is the point. He can't bunker up. When you know, I mean, obviously, none of us have been attacked on a international level the way that Trump has. You know, I mean, I've been attacked on an international level. You know, after the Hugo Awards were announced, I was getting denounced and attacked everywhere from The Guardian in England to the New Zealand Herald to Entertainment Weekly in the States. Now the thing is that it's very, very easy for me to ignore all that because I don't pay any attention. You know, I don't read The Guardian. I don't read Entertainment Weekly. I don't read. You know, I mean, there were probably 20 other publications that were attacking me, and I probably to this day don't know about it. And that was good. That was healthy. You know how much time I spent denying and refuting the charges that people were making? I think I responded once to one of them. And it was pointless. I shouldn't have bothered. But what I did instead was talk about the stuff that we were going to do. And so the thing is that there's no reason to respond to these ridiculous attacks. The best thing that Trump can do is to continue with his strategy. You know, what was he elected to do? Drain the swamp, build the wall. That's it. All this other stuff, whether it's good, whether it's bad, or whether it's irrelevant, is, strategically speaking, unimportant. Well, I wouldn't say that I responded to Cuck Shapiro so much as I was beating on him. I mean, you got to keep in mind, people do things for their own reasons. I mean, you know, I personally tend to beat dead horses. So, you know, you just need to, you need to be able to differentiate between, like, when I care about something or whether I've just, you know, for whatever reason have decided that that's going to be the dead horse on which I'll be beating for the next 6 months. You know, if you look at if you go back to 2008, it was Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. During the election, you know, back in 2004, it was Michelle Malkin, and the ludicrous idea that the Japanese were going to invade the West Coast. That's kind of infamous among the old school dread ilk, because we got really out of hand. I mean, we were like digging up, you know, untranslated Japanese World War II era documents, that sort of thing. I mean, I literally at one point talked to the Commandant of the Marine Corps to get his opinion on it. You know, I mean, we all have our idiosyncrasies. That's one of mine. So just don't confuse that. Don't confuse my personal idiosyncrasies with the whole tactical strategic thing. But to get back to the point is that the God Emperor needs to stop worrying about the tactical level, focus more on the strategic level, and focus on building up his morale, the morale of his team, and the morale of his supporters. If that means holding a rally once a week, should do it. What can the VFM do? I think that what you can do is you can tweet to him. He clearly reads tweets. You know, tweet to him, just say, you know, you're doing a great job, keep it up, build the wall. Hey, we're with you, drain the swamp. You know, and again, keep hammering it over and over and over and over again. I mean, it's so important, especially, see, the reason it's so important to keep hammering the positive side is because the negative side is going to be there constantly as well. And so the more that they see, the more positive support that they see, the stronger and more confident they will be. You know, even, you know, I'm pretty self-confident, and I'm pretty self-sufficient. You know, I don't spend a lot of time looking for approval from others. Okay, you know, when I write my books or whatever, I mean, you know, you don't write 900-page books because you're desperately looking for approval and attention and a lot of book sales. You know, I'm smart enough that I know that the best way to achieve success with fiction is to crank out as many 200-page books as you can. You know, I mean, I know Von Heppner. I published David Van Dyke. I published B.V. Larson. I understand why they are top 20 Amazon authors. Okay? I'm not trying to do what they're trying to do. You know, I have other interests. But even when I am, you know, when I'm in the middle of a witch hunt, and, you know, some group of SJWs, like, whether it's the science fiction SJWs or whether it's, you know, a collection of atheists or something, and when they're just pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding on you, you know, just sometimes having one person stand up and say, hey, you know, I'm with you. I've got your back. That can make all the difference in the world. You know, for me, for example, like, you know, John Wright and I have so little in common. You know, we have a good working relationship. You know, I edit his books. We have a lot of trust in that regard. But we are wildly, wildly different. But I will always have a tremendous regard for him and respect for him, because in the middle of the firestorm, after the SFWA incident and the rabid, don't think we'd started the rabid puppy stuff yet. No, we hadn't started that yet. But in the middle of pretty much the entire science fiction community piling on me again, wasn't the first time, and I had contacted him to see if he might have anything that Castelli could publish, because I thought he was a good author. And he didn't know who I was at first. He didn't recognize my name initially. And then he said, well, wait a minute, you're the one who's got everybody upset in the science fiction world, right? And I said, yeah, that would be me. I was kind of waiting for him to say, yeah, I'm not interested. And he said, well, if you've got those people that upset, I would definitely like to work with you. And just, and with Tom Kratman, it was much the same way. In fact, I think Tom was actually the first one that we published. And so, when you have that, and from those two guys, suddenly now, Castelia House has over 100 books out, and we've got authors coming to us, including people who are not on our side ideologically, coming to us saying, hey, we would love to work with you. Would you be willing to publish us? And so that one message, that one message of support, that one message of I've got your back, if it comes at the right time, can be absolutely vital. And that's why, if you want to know what you can do, that's what you can do. I'm very, very grateful to the VFM and to the Dread Ilk. They are one reason why I'm able to be as what's the right word? I guess tranquil about the level of opposition and hatred and criticism and whatever else you want to call it that gets directed my way. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, because I know I have my 535 VFM who always have my back. And I know that the Dread Ilk are there too. And that knowledge just provides even the most independent spirit, even the most self-sufficient person, the confidence and the wherewithal to simply ignore all the bullshit. And so I think that, to a certain extent that that's what Trump is lacking. I think too many people are trying to tell him what to do. They're too focused on the tactics, and they're not sufficiently focused on the morale. And so if there's one thing that we can do, is both on the macro level and on the micro individual level, is focus on building up the morale of the God Emperor and his supporters. Have some fun. Make some positive memes again. This is not losing. This may not be winning as much as it was before, but it is not losing. And so, and even if there have been some wrong turns, and even if there have been some setbacks and defeats, that's okay. We regroup, we move on again. And yes, I do think that it would help Trump tremendously if he had his own tribe of loyalists. So anyhow, that's my message for tonight. So be positive, keep your own morale high, and help build up the morale of those around you. Have a good evening.